So we're going to speak a little bit about diversity in computer science education now, and I made a joke earlier that our panel here is a pretty ironic example of the issues that we're facing with diversity in computer science. Right now, if you look at the numbers in the state and across the nation, as I said earlier, state is a little bit better than national statistics, but we do have an issue with a lack of female representation within computer science courses and industry. And so honestly, our panel pretty much mirrors what our state and national standards are. It's approximately about 75% male to about 25% female, and give or take a couple of percentage points. That's not always been the case, and we won't get too much in the history of that, but back in the 80s, females were actually predominant in college programs that were for computer science. But there's a lot of speculation of why that number has swung, but it's where we find ourselves now, and it's an issue that we have to address. But before we get to addressing it, I want to share a video with or I want to point our audience to view a video, and we're going to view it here and then come back and reflect on it.
My name's Araceli Casillas. I'm the oldest in my family, and I'm also the one that can handle Spanish and English both at the same time. So I've always been like a third parent at home.
Quiere aprender cosas nuevas siempre y le pone mucho empeño a lo que ella está aprendiendo, sí, todo el tiempo ella.
Both my parents dropped out in middle school, elementary, so they don't really have much experience with going to college and the process of getting there. Not having the support of my parents has affected me. It becomes very challenging sometimes to keep motivated when they don't understand what's going on.
A lot of our students end up not going to college. They need jobs. They want jobs. Their parents know what jobs are. They don't know how to navigate the world of higher education. And so I saw that as an opportunity of what can we provide to them as skills or to provide them with a background so they can go and get well-paying jobs.
So when I took computer science principles last year, Mr. Lozano was my teacher. He knows my dynamic at home, and he has been a mentor to help me and guide me through my step-by-step process into the computer science field.
She walked in my class really not knowing what she was getting into. I promised her she was going to enjoy it, and I promised her she would be really good at it.
When I found out the statistics about how little women and Latinos are in the field, that's when I realized that that was the field for me.
Hay muchas oportunidades, muchas puertas abiertas para esa carrera porque en el tiempo de atrás nada de eso había.
I feel like it's my responsibility to help guide other Latinas, other girls into this field, show them that if I can do it, they can do it too.
We need to have computer science for everybody. We need to have that open access to everybody.
Because I learned all the principles of computer science, I was able to get into Python in the college level, and I'm very excited to see what college I get into next year. I mean, everyone wants to change the world, and I think that technology is how I'm going to do it.
Very powerful message from our friends at Code.org. I just absolutely love that video because I think it speaks to so many different issues when it comes to the diversity problem that we face in the computer science. You know, obviously there are some ethnic and racial gaps that we need to fill. In Arkansas, we're not quite as bad on that as we are the gender gap, and honestly, we feel as an agency that if we can help close that gender gap to be more 50-50, then obviously we're making CS more approachable by all, and those small issues with the ethnic and racial discrepancies will eliminate themselves, or at least diminish themselves to a certain extent. But I also love that video because it speaks to the heart of what I was discussing earlier, Karma, with you, is the teacher plays such a role in this. And you know, I can't remember the day that I said that I'm going to college. I honestly can't. And I still believe that not everybody has to go to college. I was a first generation college student. I have family members that, even though they don't have pieces of paper on the wall, they make more money than I do, and they're just as happy in their job as I. And I have friends in the same situation. But I think the teacher said it best in that we have to find a way to provide these kids with the skills to get jobs or go to college. And I think that's really what our focus under computer science is. But I think this speaks back to the power of the teacher and that one-on-one contact with the students. As I said earlier, our minority enrollment is very similar to our state overall averages. So obviously we want to close those discrepancies as we can, but it's not terrible. We're continuing to look closer at that data and see where those weaknesses are, where we need to help support those issues. And as you can see, we're a little underrepresented in certain key minority demographics, and sometimes I think that may be language barriers, especially with our Hispanic population, but obviously there are resources out there that talk specifically to that. This continues to be the thing that keeps me awake at night when it comes to diversity. As I said, we're doing better as a state than we were when we started this initiative. When we started this initiative, we were about 80% male and about 20% female, but we're hovering that 72-74% male still. And last time I checked, we're about 50-50. I just want to kind of stop there and, as a white male, I'm the predominant factor in computer science, that we're the overrepresented population, so to speak. And that's where sometimes I need help from outside. I need people to challenge me. I've been challenged in sessions before of how we're approaching this as a state. And we have some initiatives that we're working on. But Karma, I'm really interested in your thoughts on this and what can we do better?
I think the young lady in the video at the end, she said, she realized she could change the world with computer science. So I think maybe we have to go about recruiting girls and trying to attract girls in that kind of way, even from the younger ages, like we were talking about earlier as well, having these summer coding camps and robotics camps and even just project camps where young girls think of a problem in their community and figure out that you solve that through computer science, and let them know from early ages, and that they can follow up, all the way through high school and their long-term career, or however it turns out for them.
I think beginning early as possible is a key. We believe all kids can read. There's, we don't differentiate that in the kindergarten and preschool classrooms. And so if we begin and have those expectations that all can succeed, whether they choose a career in computer science, that we just expect that early and often. And so I think that is key. But to while we have that transition, the one thing I think about, Anthony, what key folks in our state that are minority, female, that can actually visit our schools, that can speak to our population, and to see there's no better example of a role model than someone that looks like you and wants to inspire you. And so I think those are just some easy wins. We're all going to do it early, and so I think we're going to see some results in the near future. But it is moving. We're seeing the gap decrease, but those are just a couple of thoughts I had.
Right.
There are a lot of agencies around the state, universities and things, that are holding girls coding camps, girls STEM days and things like that. And I've taken my older girls to those things, but as you said starting earlier, maybe we need to take just young girls and let them experience things like that.
Our two robotics champions in our two elementary schools that I referenced earlier during the break, the split is about 50-50, and we have ethnic diversity among those as well. So they're seeing themselves as champions in third and fourth grade. They're fine. They're going to be fine. And what kind of example are they going to have to other of our students, to the other students in Russellville School District and other districts?
Great points, and I love your call to action for the community leaders in this area to step up. And I think that's something that our community leaders can do, not just in education, but I think that's something that also our superintendents and our principals and our teachers, they know those people in their areas.
Yes, they do.
And are we reaching out to them? Are we inviting them in our classroom? And I want to come back to the younger piece, but I want to jump over to just Greg real quickly, because Greg, I know that your engineering program at high school over the past years, and I know we've recently lost the teacher that was there that was a great teacher, but that program saw phenomenal gender support, I'll say it that way, and it was amazing to watch those kids in that engineering class get out there, and lots of times it seemed like it was girls versus the boys, and the girls a lot of time won. So
I was just sitting here reflecting while you were speaking, and I just feel like how fortunate that we are in the particular district where I work, because we have our computer science teacher, one of our engineering teachers, our female faculty, and how much that relates to students when they see a teacher. All teachers have great influence, but I think there's an extra layer of influence there when a student sees someone who looks like them, who is being successful in that field, and so I think one piece, not that there's an easy answer, but I think one piece is the way we support diversity in our education for those STEM areas. We get more females in those roles, and a better mix in diversity among our populations, that we're going to have a greater number of students who are seeing themselves in that place because they see a teacher that's meant so much to them that's there.
It's a great point. Yes.
Well, and I just briefly, before we go to this next video, I want to circle back to that younger component, and that is the importance of those CADE embedded standards. And circling back to what we said earlier about having Miss Turner, who is little Susie's third grade English teacher, talking about computer science, it becomes normal for her. But that said, it's not just computer science, though. It's STEM in general. Where I was a math teacher, and Greg, you probably got some of this, maybe not near as much in science, but maybe some of it. It would always disturb me, and you mentioned earlier about the literacy piece. It would always disturb me the number of parents that would dismiss their kids' ability or what the grades their kids were making at parent-teacher conference time by saying, well, I was never good in math. Okay,
We've heard it often.
That disturbed me greatly, because parents don't say, well, I never learned how to read, so it's okay for little Susie not to learn how to read. So why do we do that in the STEM area? But before we answer that question, I want to, we actually launched a public service announcement competition with the Arkansas Women's Foundation, which is one of our great partners in this CS initiative, and also AETN was a partner in this initiative, and AT&T Wireless provided the funding for this. But this was a PSA that we put out in theaters across the state over Christmas. We're going to watch it, and then we'll come back with some final comments.
It's hard to be a girl. People never think you can do as much as men. And the moment they lay eyes on you, they see dumb, dependent, easily hurt, passive. But STEM made me see different.
People think I can be limited until I create something limitless, until I prove them wrong. You can waste your time living in the lines, or you can cross them.
We choose to cross them. We make our own ways. We choose to set our own path.
Because of computer science, it's stud to strut, not hide.
So whenever we finally got that movie back, Jessica, who's here at AETN, came back to me and she said, we were watching that, and when that last student put that M on crooked, I kind of cringed for a second, and we were going to reshoot it, and then I thought to myself, no, because we're letting students choose their own pathway under STEM, and that's an example of CS and the pathway question. We're wanting them to be different.
That's right.
I mean, that's really what it comes down to is we sometimes as adults see this box, and I do it with my kids all the time. We have this idea of the box that the kids should fit within. And we try to force every kid within that box. Or at least sometimes I catch myself doing it. I don't want to speak for y'all. But I see myself doing that sometimes, especially with my own kids, and I'm worried sometimes that we do that as a state. And I hope that that's some of the things that we're overcoming as a CS initiative, and I think that those are the things that we're doing that will make CS more approachable and hopefully grow that diversity piece in addition to making it available at younger ages. So just final comments, suggestions for schools, action items that they can take in increasing enrollment in light of that video, and then I'll share some other partner information after that.
One thing we've done in our district, I've encouraged every one of our buildings to tell their story. I know we use that phrase a lot, but it's so important to really advocating for your own school or your own district. And so I think every one of our schools can add a piece of the computer science initiative, but along with all the other wonderful things we're doing in our districts. And I'm so proud of what we're doing in Russellville, and part of the story that we're telling is we're making sure that we have that computer science piece embedded in that story. So I think all of us, and as we've heard Commissioner Keys say many times, if we don't tell our story, somebody else will, and it may not be the story we want told.
Exactly.
I think the K-8 embedded standards are a great launching off point, but I'm really excited about the coding block getting underway and how every student is going to get a little taste of that, you know, that I hope is going to really explode when they get to the high school. You know, they're going to get to experience those different things in computer science, the robotics, the 3D printing, the programming, the apps. They will have a little experience of all of that, and then maybe get really a taste for how they want to continue with it. So I'm excited about that getting underway.
And that's a good point about the coding block, is that, you know, it's not intended to just be something additional for students. It's something that removes, hopefully, along with the K-8 embedded standards, will remove that stigma that only certain people take these courses. That's really the intent of that, is that we're trying to remove that stereotype that it's only geeky white males or predominantly geeky white males that take computer science. And that's what we're hoping to do through the K-8 standards, the coding block, to say to young women, to say to other underrepresented populations that in computer science that this is for everyone. This is something that is accessible to you, and spark their interest. So, Greg, I'll go to you on this one, because something I also think that is very successful for communities is those what I call family code nights, and are those coding nights, those hour to code events that they have after hours, where you invite participants in. Now, I know my team came to a STEM night, and y'all have another one coming up here pretty soon. That Ms. Hennard has invited me to come participate at in your district, and you know we're always open if it's in our schedule to come support those type of events, because we love seeing them. Just speak a little bit to the success or the excitement, you know, not just in CS but maybe STEM in general, of what type of promotion opportunities that allows your school reaching out to these underserved populations.
You know, Dr. Gottrie just talked about telling the story, and you know, certainly my mind tends to go immediately to newsletters and social media posts and those kinds of things that we put out there, but nothing tells our story more powerfully than when our stakeholders are involved and they're there experiencing it firsthand. So we have parents and their children right there together with the teacher at the same time, and the students are really showing off what they have done, what they have learned, what they're experimenting with. We've talked so much today about opportunity and innovation, you know, and really we see any opportunity that we have to let our families know that this is not school as usual. This is not how we learned in school. You know, our kids have opportunities that we didn't have as learners, And so that's at the same time exciting and a little terrifying for the people who are in charge of leading that, because we've not been down this path before. We don't really know what that looks like. Sometimes it's dirty. That classroom looks a little different than what a good classroom looked like when I was in school, you know. But when those folks have the opportunity to come together and learn together, when parents are sitting down and their kids are taking them through a block-based coding program and saying, this is what that is. And then when I click on this button and you see the code that's behind that, and I mean, to see a parent's eyes light up just like their kid to realize, oh my gosh, you know, my kid could actually be doing this. They are doing this, you know, and where that could lead, you know, that's really the exciting thing for us about being able to see that firsthand and be a part of that.
Well, I don't know if you're even aware of this, but Commissioner Key completed his first hour of code at Hill Farm Elementary in their gymnasium the first year of this initiative. My wife had organized that family coding night, and I was running around. I was in D.C. at that point. I was running around on a Verizon Vigo machine, just interacting, and my son sat next to him and helped him complete that hour of code. And I had to go remind my son that was my boss and he better be on best behavior. But with that, you know, we have many partners, some national, some local. I've already mentioned the Women's Foundation of Arkansas, and I think they are such a key partner in this initiative. And Annabeth Gorman, who's the executive director, I call her up all the time and say, I've got a crazy idea, and very seldom she say, yeah, you're crazy. But we have a great partnership. But one thing that I want to mention as a resource specifically for schools and counselors and administrators is the National Center for Women and Information Technology. They actually have an entire site that is dedicated to what they call Counselors for Computing. Now, even though it's Counselors for Computing, I look at it as educators for computers, or educators for computing. They have 10 ways, they have handouts, printables on 10 ways to attract new students, to attract women, to attract females to these courses, how to make them marketable to these particular typically underserved populations. They just have some great resources out there, both digitally and printable, and I think you can even order a pre-printed packet of their posters and everything. That our schools, I hope, are tapping into, receiving those materials. I believe they operate off of a NSF grant, so it's not like you're signing up for a program you got to pay for. And they really have some great resources. Just a couple more that I'll mention before we move on. Obviously, the CS for All Consortium, everybody knows that. The current White House initiative, CS for Kids. Arkansas is a member of the Expanding Computing Education Pathways Alliance. We're one of 17 state members on that team. The ENIAC Programmers Project, we bought the rights to all 3 documentaries, and they're out there on lynda.com. We'll make sure that there's a link to those in the session materials for this. AR Code Kids is a nonprofit that was set up in Arkansas specifically to support the CS initiative, and of course CSTA, both the Arkansas and the national organization. We'll take a brief moment, because Karma, I know that you've attended the CSTA conference, and I believe you got some good news this year on your future attendance, correct? For this year.
That was a cohort at my district that got the grant to go to that, but I actually got one last year.
Okay.
So, yes.
Okay, so feedback for participants that may have never been to the National CSTA conference. What do you suggest it? I mean, obviously I'm on the board of directors, so I'm a little I'm a little biased, but
that's
non-paid board member, by the way.
That's one of those I would speak to the superintendents and say, absolutely, if you have a teacher that can go and that you can send, they absolutely need to go. There's so many wonderful sessions. I went to the National Center for Women in Information Technology. They had a session and showed how you get to all their resources and materials to attract young girls, and yes, it was great.
Okay. And if you can't make it to the national conference, we have an annual CS conference here in Arkansas. So look for information on that on our website. And then, of course, we can't say enough about our partnership with Arkansas Career Education and between Arkansas Career Education and Arkansas Department of Education, and then just the continued support of the governor's office that continues to make this a focus of that administration. So with that, any last comments on our thoughts or suggestions on increasing diversity within how we're going to fix this diversity problem as a state? Do you have the magic answer? Because I tell you, you may not want to say it on camera. You may just want to write a book, because you could sell a lot of copies if you have that magic solution.
Start early, share your story, and provide strong role models.
Sounds like 3 parts to a book, Dr. Gocher.
There you go.
My dad was a pastor, so he always had 3 parts to his sermon.
I understand. Well, with that, we're going to come back shortly, and we're going to discuss support structures again that the state is providing. We'll drill down into those, and I appreciate y'all's feedback on the diversity part that's so important to our state and our students.